Thank you, and thank you for this honor. I would like to just point out that while this may be a Lifetime Achievement Award, I hope to have many other achievements and more buildings in the future. Occasionally I'm asked the secret to my success. Most people assume that my secret is I did an excellent job in choosing my parents. Indeed, an article in Business Week described me as having been born on third base, spending my youth trying to steal second base. Today I hope to explain what made the Durst Organization successful while being an innovator and a leader in green design, and I can assure you it takes much more than being born into it. I guide my family's business by ensuring that there is an alignment of interest in building the best we can and keeping our buildings that way through hard work, tenacity, perseverance, listening, paying attention, timing, and treating others as you would like to be treated. I have to admit, a little luck does help. I always point out that working for the next generation is the basis of environmental responsibility. We have been taught since childhood to leave a place better than we found it. My grandfather, Joseph Durst, arrived in New York in 1902. He was 20 years old and began with a push cart. He accumulated resources and started a partnership with a man named Reuben. These are the organizational documents that he signed for that partnership in 1905. For comparison's sake, this is the documents that we recently signed with the Port Authority for our joint venture. From the meager beginnings of investing $800 in 1905, my grandfather began writing checks of over $100,000. In 1907, he married Rose Friedwald, and they moved to Mount Vernon. I'm showing you this because my achievements are based on many others' success. I wouldn't be here without my grandfather and my father. In 1915, my grandfather began investing in real estate. He was giving people advice in real estate and saw that they were making more money in real estate with his advice than he was making in the clothing business. He was an innovator and a risk taker. He left his homeland for America, started a business, got married, and jumped into the real estate business. To succeed in real estate, you must be willing to take risks, but these must be calculated risks based on study and diligence. Most builders build the same building over and over because there's less risk. They know what mistakes they're making, and they don't mind making them. We want to make new mistakes. We try and build each building better than the last one, but we spend time and money investigating improved methods. The very first project I did was with Eli Zabar. He and I were partners on a building on the west side, and it was a total failure that convinced Eli to stay in the food business, and I was able to use those mistakes in my business. Here you see my grandfather with Mayor LaGuardia. I'm told that it's a very postmodern way of looking at the camera. He bought a building in 1943, a loft building, which was built in 27. And at that point, this building here, my uncle and fathers joined the business. We still own this building. We've rebuilt it 6 times. The very first time that my family rebuilt it, my Uncle Roy decided to try a new invention for office buildings, air conditioning. The brokers told him, well, it's crazy. When it gets hot, everybody goes home. My father with his brothers and his father, my family began assembling sites on Manhattan's 3rd Avenue, and they assembled most of the land under the buildings that you see there. They began when they realized that not only by selling the land, they were losing out on the profit that could be made by building. They began building on their own. One of the people that they used to sell to called up my father and said, "Joe, do you know what your sons are doing? The answer was yes, and it's their decision. And that's how we have always had succession. The next generation is just allowed to step in and make their own mistakes. Indeed, in 2009, when I stepped down as president to begin our transition, I told people I was retiring so I could spend less time with my family. But our work at One World Trade Center has somewhat delayed that. Here's 3rd Avenue when my family began buying the office buildings, began assembling the sites. These are the office buildings that my family built on 3rd Avenue. In the mid-'60s, my father foresaw that 3rd Avenue was being filled up and that the city would have to expand to the west. We began acquiring property on 6th Avenue. This is 1133, the very first building that we built on 6th Avenue. At that time is when I began my partnership with Eli, and this was our ad, which brought in a lot of people, but just as we began building, the recession occurred, and while we had lots of people looking at an unusual concept for living in the city, not many wanted to buy it. In 1980, I was joined by my cousin Jody, and now Jody is the president of the organization. Jody and I together built the U.S. Trust Building on the right and 1155 for White and Case on the left. We always work with our tenants by providing good service, and we don't try and use their tenancy to extract more money. We try and make our dollars out of the rent that we charge. One of our tenants began with us in 1958, has expanded from 5,000 feet to 30,000 feet at 1133, and is now expanding to One World Trade Center. While the company always made its mark as innovators in development, design, and operation of our buildings, my cousin and I began to explore sustainability in buildings in the early 90s. We began a process of retrofitting our buildings with energy-efficient lighting and less environmentally damaging HVAC systems. In 1993, we had the opportunity to rebuild 1133 6th Avenue, a major office building of 900,000 square feet. It wasn't an opportunity that we sought, but because all the leases expired in 1994 and it was built with asbestos, everybody had to move out. 1994 was a real estate recession, but we were able to successfully re-rent the building. This picture of the plant, in our office, we not only show the pictures of our office buildings, but all our mechanical plants. Having successfully leased up 1133, we then realized that it was time to start building new office buildings. The city had sites in Times Square, which we tried to convince them they should build on. They said that we had just finished suing them for 4 years to prevent them from building the buildings, and now they want to know what our interest was in having them build. So I told them, we'll build it. Everybody thought we were crazy, but I was able to convince them that we would build a new office building. Once we were given the green light, we assembled a team of Fox and Fowl, Tishman Construction, and we agreed that we would build the first high-rise office building. We didn't know exactly what that meant. So at Bob Fox's urging, we had a series of retreats to define what a green building was. All the architects, engineers, contractors, as well as representatives from Earth Day New York, Rocky Mountain Institute, and NRDC attended this retreat. We spent several weekends and all-day meetings, and after dinner and drinks, let loose ideas we had kept to ourselves, and by the end, we had a blueprint for moving forward. We formed committees to investigate different issues, created a meeting schedule, and most importantly, got everyone to buy into the project's goals. In the past, projects I had worked on had meetings that were spent in the blame game. The contractor would point at the architect, who would point at the developer, who would point at both of them, and the meetings went on for an hour without getting anything done. We set up a new format. Meetings were to resolve issues. People came to the meetings having met and discussed solutions beforehand, and at the meetings, we would agree to what the solutions are. This practice is an important part of making the design and construction process efficient, and efficiency is the heart of green buildings. We not only designed a fantastic building, but created a model for designing buildings that we follow for every project. 4 Times Square is a great building, architecturally distinguished, energy efficient, and a commercial success. We installed PVCs in the building curtain wall and 400 kilowatts worth of fuel cells. We designed the building with a mechanical space at top for more efficient heating, ventilation, and air conditioning with a steel hat truss, which added additional weight to the top and reduced the amount of steel we needed for wind load. We tripled the amount of outside air vented in the building and filtered out 90% of the particulate matter. We created a template to use as much local and recycled material as possible, and we insisted that all construction to be recycled. This was unheard of at the time, and we met with much resistance, but there's now standard practice in the industry and substantially reduces costs. We had truly made a better building and a better building process. And while we had successes, we learned a lot from our mistakes. The PVCs had a payback of 25 years and a useful life of 20 years. And they're being manufactured in someone's garage. Today, obviously, that's completely changed. When we installed them at the Helena, the payback was 12 years. The fuel cells we are discarding, and as we retrofit 4 Times Square for the first time, we'll be installing an island generating system. So while the industry did not immediately embrace what we thought of as a new way of building, we were guided by what we did at 4 Times Square in developing One Bryant Park. We learned that using the least amount of energy in operating a building could not and should not be the goal of sustainable development. We learned that buildings are meant to be occupied and enjoyed, and that the goal is only to reduce energy consumption, and the building itself will be inefficient. So if the goal is only to reduce energy consumption, the building itself will be inefficient, unpleasant, and ultimately unrentable. Using the least amount of energy possible in operating a building cannot be the goal of sustainable construction. My father used to say, a beautiful building is a fully leased building. I'd have to update that to a beautiful building is a fully leased, environmentally responsible building. We designed into One Bryant Park a 4.6 megawatt combined heat and power plant. It runs on natural gas, and we use the waste heat to generate domestic hot water to heat the building through an absorption chiller to make air conditioning. Power from a conventional utility plant is about 30% efficient, while our cogen plant approaches 70% efficiency. We designed it to work with an ice storage system. 40,000 tons of ice are made at night and cool the building during the day. This allows the cogen to be extremely efficient. Here you see the ice storage tanks in the basement of the building. It requires a steep capital investment, but the payback is about 5 or 6 years. One Bryant Park's water efficiency is one of our proudest achievements. New York has an abundant and cheap supply of potable water, but we believe this is temporary. And as a multi-generational real estate company, temporary is anything less than 20 years. Our combined sewer and Our combined sewer system overflows whenever there are heavy storms. To combat this, we installed a number of water-saving devices into One Bryant Park, where we are saving 10,000 gallons of water a year, collecting rainwater and using water from the underground streams, and with a gray water system, which is used to flush toilets and for makeup for the air conditioning plant. In order to maximize the efficiency of the build-out space and to increase the productivity, we designed the building to be a healthy and pleasant place to work. Our slab-to-slab is 14 feet, allowing us to install a raised floor, full floor-to-ceiling windows without the obstruction of a convector. While glass obviously is less energy efficient than other materials, it allows the light and air to come in, and we filter out at One Bryant Park 95% of the particulate matter. And so this is another example of, that we need to use more energy to make the building a better place to live in. This also gives the tenants the ability to control the heat at their desk. One of the biggest issues that we have with tenants is one person will be too hot sitting next to one person too cold. Underfloor air conditioning overcomes that. In 2005, we opened the Helena, designed by FX Fowl, a 600-unit LED gold residential building. The Helena has a black water system, photovoltaics, and it has micro-turbines, which the city prevented us from turning on for 5 years. But they had when we put them in, they had a 5-year payback. We also incorporated fly ash into the concrete. It was the first building in New York that we're aware of that used fly ash. The contractors fought us with it, but now it's a standard practice. This is the Helena. After the Helena, we built the Epic, and we continued. It's a LEED gold building. Everyone asks about the cost of building green, which in my opinion is a dumb question. No one asks how much more expensive it is to build a building with elevators or air conditioning. The green features pay for themselves. The real cost is the time that it takes for planning effort. But this effort, many of our building practices were considered green or a way to conserve resources, has become ingrained into the work habits of our employees. So this brings us now to the present. This week, Condé Nast moved into One World Trade Center, and it's been quite an effort to get us here, although when we started, the Port Authority said we would not have much work to do. There were already 40 stories in the air, but most of my office has been working 10 or 12-hour days to get this building open. We have a couple of other projects we're working on. 855 Avenue of the Americas, a mixed-use building, which has office space and residential, and 625 57th Street, which by Bjarke Ingels. So I will close with this one last building, but thank you very much.